I sacrificed my childhood to raise my brothers, but when I found out my brother's girlfriend called us white trash, I realized I wasn't just betrayed, I was targeted for destruction, whipped to if I pressed charges. The people involved in my situation, aside from me, include my husband, Mark 35, my brothers Owen 29, Jack 28, Kyle 27, Rob 27, and Finn 26, and my best friend Margot 32. Owen's fiancée is Trish 29, Kyle's partner is Ro 28, and Finn has a new serious girlfriend named Annie 23. For some background, I was the parentified sister who basically raised my brothers. I taught them how to cook and clean, helped them with their homework, took them to extracurricular activities, guided them in finding scholarships and trade schools, and helped them choose colleges. I played a big role in shaping them into the men they are today. My brothers are fully aware of the sacrifices I made, and because of this, they treat me as their sister rather than a parental figure. This sibling bond has led to some wild traditions, which is where my current situation originates. I 30F just celebrated my birthday. To mark the occasion, Mark decided to help Owen organize a dinner celebration since everyone had something to celebrate. Owen recently got engaged to Trish. Jack received a big pay raise. Kyle launched an online shop. Rob bought his first house and motor home, actually, and Finn just started his first serious relationship. So, Owen planned a big dinner at a fancy restaurant, with my brothers and husband agreeing to split the bill with Margot, while leaving me out since it was technically my birthday and I shouldn't have to pay. Fast forward to dinner. We were seated in the back due to our large group. Everyone was having a blast, laughing and sharing stories about their lives when Margot's phone popped up with an old video from my teen birthday dinner. It featured my brothers giving me my birthday bruises. If you've heard of birthday punches, it's a similar idea. However, since my brothers are built like massive hulks and I'm barely 5 feet tall, they opted to flick me instead, resulting in tiny bruises rather than making it look like I was jumped lol. Rob kicked off the birthday noises tradition, and each of my brothers flicked me 6 times, giving me a total of 30 flicks. Margot and Mark each added 2 flicks for good luck. Did it look strange? Maybe, but we already stood out because of our large group. Plus, it wasn't a big production, I just went around the table to each brother. Trish and Ro laughed, fully aware of our family dynamic and knowing it was all in good fun. However, I noticed Annie didn't seem comfortable at all. When she went to the bathroom, I decided to check on her old habits die hard. I waited until she was washing her hands and asked if everything was okay. She sneered and called us embarrassing and low class. I replied that I didn't understand her attitude, explaining that the night was supposed to be happy and we were just being ourselves. Honestly, I said something like, "This is who we are as siblings. We hit each other. It's not that deep." She sneered again, telling me, "Well, this is a place where it's not okay to be yourselves," in a mocking tone, and then stormed out of the bathroom. I returned to the table and she remained sulky throughout dinner. When the bill arrived, she tried to drag Finn away, making it clear she was not a fan of our family traditions. This led to a little squabble among my other brothers, who had all agreed beforehand to split the bill. Out of nowhere, Annie jumped in and said I could pay for them since white trash makes do. This ignited a fight with Margot, who was retaliated by throwing wine on Annie, declaring, "You want white trash, you got it." I tried to step in and take control of the situation, but Annie was already trying to go after Margot. Fortunately, Ro and Trish managed to take her outside, while the rest of us settled the bill and apologized to the staff for the disturbance. As we were leaving, we spotted Annie swinging at Trish, with Ro trying to get in between them. I immediately stepped in and told Annie she needed to leave. I made it clear that until she apologized, she wasn't welcome at any family gatherings. I also told Finn that if she ever tried anything again, he should call us immediately. Finn agreed that wouldn't be an issue and broke up with her right then and there, telling her to call a cab. He was apparently very upset about being called white trash and didn't like how she spoke to me. He also mentioned later that Annie looked like the guy to accuse him of something and that she had done it to her ex. The issue I'm currently facing is with Annie's social circle. It turns out Annie comes from a pretty affluent part of our community, like private school rich with a personal chef and nanny. She and a group of her wealthy friends have tried to tarnish my reputation, sending emails to my boss and co-workers. I told them to respond by saying they would forward the email to me, and if Annie continued this harassment and defamation, I would sue. Most of my co-workers weren't bothered by the emails, but there are a select few who already didn't like me and are now using this to make my work life a nightmare. I've spoken to my boss about the situation, and they are monitoring those co-workers' work emails to ensure Annie isn't sending anything further. Margot suggested I should go ahead with my threat the next time someone gets an email and file charges for defamation, harassment, and emotional damages. The tricky part is that Annie is only 23, barely out of school, and pursuing a court case against her would completely wreck her life. I know she's trying to ruin mine, but I can't shake the feeling that taking her to court would be excessive. Am I being too nice? Whip to if I actually press charges? Update. First off, I want to thank everyone from my previous post. I have a tendency to overthink, which makes decisions like this incredibly hard. A lot has happened in the past 10 days, so I'll share the events in the order they occurred. 2 days after my last post, Margot's car got egged. She and 2 of her neighbors caught the perpetrators on camera, and it turned out to be 2 of Annie's flying monkeys, which I'm now calling them thanks to someone from the original post. I laughed so hard at how accurate that is. These girls were total rats. They sold out Annie in a heartbeat. I almost felt sorry for her until I came out of work one day to find the words, "You deserved your miscarriage," spray painted on my car hood. For some context, I suffered a miscarriage earlier this year after one of my students I work at a behavioral school kicked me down the stairwell. I was trying to help another teacher at the time, and there was a security guard present, but the kid kicked my shin, and nobody caught me in time. I was 6 months along when it happened and ended up suffering the miscarriage at work. It turned into a whole scene with ambulances, admin staff, and district staff around while I was just bleeding and crying. I was given tow for 2 weeks, and by the time I returned to work, everyone knew what had happened. I received plenty of soft looks and kindness, with even those who didn't like me trying to help make me feel better. Honestly, I was just grateful summer vacation was coming up. I took photos of the vandalism on my car and presented them to my boss since the paint was still wet, which meant there should be camera evidence of what happened. They told me to sit tight and that they would take care of everything. After about 30 minutes, my boss returned with one of the co-workers who didn't like me and 2 security officers. It turned out that the co-worker had fed Annie that information, and she was promptly fired on the spot after being forced to apologize to me. They also had security check the parking lot footage and got the license plate of Annie's car screeching out of the parking lot while she tossed a can of spray paint out the window, accidentally denting another car in the process. The police were called, and the spray could be taken as evidence. I was advised to get a lawyer and press charges, so I decided to talk to a lawyer about the situation. When I got home, I looked up some lawyers and consulted with one the very next day through a virtual meeting. He offered to take on my case pro bono since he had a bone to pick with Annie's mother, not my business to tell. But wow, that story was even crazier than mine. We compiled all the evidence into a document and proceeded to press charges for the damage to my car, as well as harassment and emotional distress. Honestly, I was expecting a big blowout when all this went down, but karma really showed up and took a big bite out of Annie. Apparently, Annie had more than just what she did to me on her hands. The co-worker whose car she teethed with the spray can also be pressing charges. Margot decided to press charges for emotional distress, too. To top it off, Annie had been going after my brothers as well. She and her flying monkeys were review bombing Kyle's shop, slashed 3 tires on Rob's mobile home, sent complaints to Owen's boss through customer service lines, and even had the audacity to steal Jack's fence surrounding his house who steals a fence. All these mounting charges finally caught Daddy's attention. He called everyone who was pressing charges to one of his properties to talk it out. He had paid Annie's lease and was keeping her close to ensure she wouldn't get into any more trouble. Margot said she would be bringing her lawyer and advised everyone else to do the same. It was honestly pretty funny watching Annie's face as we all showed up with our lawyers except for Finn, who was just there as a character witness and brought his own evidence. Annie had been harassing and blackmailing him, and she was ready to throw some absolutely damning evidence at all of us and our lawyers. I should mention that I hadn't gotten the spray paint removed from my car, so when Annie's father saw it, you could see the boiling, quiet rage in his glare. I'll call him Hunter. He also had his lawyer present. The sit-down lasted 2 full days, with all the lawyers going over the different charges and figuring out the appropriate consequences for Annie. My co-worker was simply paid out with some extra financial compensation and a few coupons from Hunter's businesses. Jack got his fence back, and Hunter paid to have it reinstalled and repainted. Even giving it a 10-year warranty, Jack stayed as emotional support since Mark was away on business. All the false reviews on Kyle's shop were removed, and Hunter compensated him for any lost revenue. That conversation happened privately between Hunter and Kyle, so I'm not sure how much he got. Hunter also reached out to Owen's boss, who he apparently went to school with, to set the record straight. Plus, Hunter decided to pay for Trish and Owen's honeymoon as extra compensation. That just left Margot, Rob, and me. The lawyers, the three of us, and Hunter agreed to combine the charges into one case. And Hunter managed to convince the district attorney to come and try to strike a plea deal. I can't say much about that since the case is still ongoing, but just know Annie will be held accountable for her actions. Hunter even offered to get me a new car. I had been driving the same one for 10 years, but I told him I'd settle for a used one. He made a fuss, saying, "I didn't raise my daughter like this. This is all her mother." Seriously, wow. This woman must be a real piece of work if even her own husband throws her under the bus like that. So, Hunter is taking me car shopping, and apparently, wifey is really mad that he isn't covering for their little princess. Meanwhile, Annie is finally getting what she deserves. It's funny how money can be such a powerful thing. Hunter even managed to get our case moved to a priority list, meaning the proceedings will be sped up. To top it all off, Hunter said all the payouts will be coming from Annie's inheritance. That's why he's been so okay with dishing out so much excess compensation. I swear, I wish I could have captured the look on Annie's face when she heard that. I have no issues updating you all once the proceedings are finished. I'll make sure to keep a spare tab open so I don't lose this throwaway account. It seems like everything is wrapping up nicely for me. I really didn't expect it to be resolved in under 10 days. But Hunter is genuinely a nice guy. Maybe the Gen Z crowd shouldn't be eating this rich. He's one of the good ones, lol. He even invited Mark, Trish, and Ro out for drinks to discuss compensation for the dinner scene, which is really sweet. Right now, I'm just relaxing on my sofa while Mark makes popcorn. We're about to binge watch some cartoons. We love spending our Sundays this way. I'm glad I could update you all, and thank you for your encouraging words. I'll be back one last time after the court proceedings, and maybe another time if my lawyer lets me share his story about Annie's mum. Edit. I see a lot of people misinterpreting how the charges are being processed, and that's mostly due to my poor wording. So, let me clarify. Annie has a record, but Hunter has always bailed her out. The cops advised me to lawyer up and press charges because Annie has a history of pulling stunts like this and getting away with it. The process is still long, and the cops did collect evidence. However, Annie's familial name definitely makes things go a lot quicker. Hunter is a bit of a tycoon, with many of his connections funding Annie's lifestyle. He has a lot of fingers in many pies and thus holds significant power in our town. The sit-down was intended to minimize Annie's criminal charges and determine which ones were worth taking to court. That's why Owen, my co-worker, Kyle, and Jack got paid out. But the charges involving Rob, Margot, and me are still being processed. As I mentioned in a comment, the day was called after the sit-down. It's not uncommon for lawyers to meet with a perpetrator to find some common ground. We all had to sign documents detailing what we had done and what was accomplished during that meeting. From that point on, I have no idea what's happening since I haven't heard anything from my lawyer about court dates. It will still take months for the charges to go through and for us to actually go to court, even on the priority list.